marker.
Tri-City Sports Now. Yeah, this is it. Come on, Roddy. Yes, as that unmistakable music begins. This is Tri-City Sports Now with yours truly, Marky Billson. Who else would lead off the show with that? You know, come on. And we got the best guests. We got the hardest hitting opinions in the market. We're on every day. Me. I'm using the royal we. It's me here, okay? Marky Billson, 1420 WEMB Sports Radio. If you can't get 1420 where you are at, we invite you to go to www.jetbroadcasting.live. And we also invite you to watch the show on archive. I got caught up with all the slugging. So if you want to know how ETSU football is going to do, or our thoughts on the Vols, or whatever else, it's right there. Go to our video section on now the most liked sports radio Facebook page in the market. And I don't know if I should say this or not, but there is one other entity who has a sports talk show, and it's all online. There's no radio station. So he is dependent on absolute, I don't necessarily want to tell you what it is for obvious reasons, free advertising, but he is dependent on his online viewership. We're only 200 likes away from catching him. Less than 200, as a matter of fact. So, it's now more than 1,800 followers, 1,800 likes. I mean, we are really making the waves. And I mentioned it on the promo that I did yesterday. People enjoy, I think, for so long, we had a situation in this market where sports talk radio, I think, was more of an extension of the public relations department. Rather than journalism, hard-hitting opinion, truthful opinion. You would get, I mean, there's some things that went on, but the one thing I think, there are several things. I mean, but when ETSU cut football, that's the time for the sports media to really get behind, you know, we've got to stop this. We've got to have sports in this market. It's demanding, this market deserves to have a Division I college football team. And what do we get instead? Okay, that's what ETSU thinks. The exception was me, of course. So, I mean, that's what we had. Okay, you know. I got sick and tired of listening in my youth to Sullivan East loses 69-0. These are the days of the old Big Ten conference. But boy, did they try hard. I hated that. And I would hear that. And to me, I mean, it's just absolutely outrageous. Let's find out why Sullivan East is losing 69-0. Let's not defend them. I mean, trying hard. It's a high school football team. If you are not trying hard, you should be cut. Now, that goes without saying. Let's go, and you used to hear all these things, and all the apologies for local sports entities. The overrating, which is still done a little bit today. You know, I mean, I'm hearing some people who, I remember listening to one of our competitors. You know, you can try to keep pace, what's going on, what's being said. And, oh, Albert Pujols, a former Johnson City Cardinal. No, he never was a former Johnson City Cardinal. His career started above Johnson City. This is why I say, this market, I'd like to have a AA team instead of the old Appalachian League. And the reason being, because players like Albert Pujols, for the most part, do not come through the Appalachian League. Now, there are exceptions. Last year, it seemed like every first-round pick in baseball came through the Appalachian League. How long did they stay? Not long. Unless you were Shane Baz, and then you were playing with multiple teams and staying for 2 years, I guess it was. But, this year we don't have that. And the Albert Pujols, I know some people say, well, Terry Pendleton won the MVP and he played for the Johnson City Cardinals. And, Yadier Molina. The guys are out there that have played. Don't get me wrong. Bobby Mercer and Ron Guidry played for the Johnson City Yankees and all that. Yes, he did. Yeah, Rube Walker, who created the 5-man pitching staff, played on the Irwin Cubs in 1943. It's happened. I mentioned Steve Blass breaking his career. 1960 Kingsport Pirates. 11 years later, he wins the 7th game of the World Series for the Pittsburgh Pirates. No, there have been good players. Steve Dalkowski. I'm surprised, though, that there aren't any local Steve Dalkowski stories. If you don't know who Steve Dalkowski is, look him up. Said that he threw 110 miles an hour, had no control. It said that Nuke LaLoosh in Bull Durham, that character was the inspiration. Steve Dalkowski. Okay, he once pitched in Kingsport, lost in an Appalachian League game 8-4 through a no-hitter. Think about that. No-hitter, lost 8-4. That's how wild he was. Who knows how many pitches he threw? Yeah, so I don't think they had the pitch count thing. Yeah. I want to begin, though. I know it's race week, and I know Bristol shut down, and I know this and I know that, but I really do want to talk about baseball to begin with, and I think that's going to be an overlying theme. I also want to tell you, come out finally. This is Tri-City Sports Now. Do we have to change the name of the program because we may be changing the name of the Tri-Cities? I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. Fantasy football, guys. I can tell you who not to draft. We're going to talk any baseball. Look, I want to talk baseball, okay? And the reason why, I mentioned I have the best guests in the market, but there's one guest I can't get, and I would love to have had him on today, but it's Doc Edwards, who was a friend of mine when I announced independent minor league baseball. He was the manager of the San Angelo Colts, and just a kind, grandfatherly individual at that age. When I got to know him, it was in his late 70s, early 80s, and all this. If the name sounds familiar, he was a backup catcher in the 60s. He was the manager of the Cleveland Indians in the late 80s. Been a big league coach with the Mets under Buddy Harrelson. So a lot of things like that. A career baseball lifer. The Charleston Charlies was the team that he managed in the AAA. I can remember that. Charleston, West Virginia, if you're curious. But here's the situation. Doc Edwards passed away several months ago. And, by the way, you can go on YouTube. Go Marky Billson, Doc Edwards. You'll hear, it might have been his final interview. But we talked about, this was back in 2017, I believe it was, or was it 2016? Somewhere around in there. And the Braves had just hired Ron Washington to be a coach. And I was very skeptical about that, and I still kind of am. But the reason why is his drug use in the past. So I wanted to find out from his former manager, what was Ron Washington really like? Well, who are the Braves getting? And he told us. And I thought it was very honest. He even answered, the drug, my questions on that. Hey, did you have any suspicions back then when he was playing, it was the 80s, cocaine in the 80s, nothing that I did, but supposedly I'm the only one who didn't. I don't know. But the real reason I wanted to have Doc Edwards on is the story yesterday came out that the Philadelphia Phillies had hired Charlie Manuel to be their hitting coach. And if you're not aware, Manuel was the greatest manager in the history of the Philadelphia Phillies franchise, which dates back to 1883. And there's not even anybody close, in my opinion. Do not give me Dallas Green. He didn't stick around long enough. Do not give, and it's Manuel who has the most pennants, the most world titles, tied with Dallas Green in Phillies history, most victories. You get the point? Yeah. Charlie Manuel is the greatest manager who ever managed the Philadelphia Phillies. Took them to the playoffs 4 straight years, I think it was. Who did that with the Phillies? They've lost more games than any other team in the history of baseball. Now, Charlie Manuel was given his first coaching job in the majors by Doc Edwards, which is why I would have liked to have had him on the air. But here's the deal. Manuel gets hired as the new hitting coach of the Phillies yesterday. Josh Brown, Knock Home a Nation, comes on 1:30 on Fridays, and we always laugh at the Phillies. We laugh at their ineptitude. For the second straight year, they are dropping like a brick. Last year, they were in first place for a long time. They wound up with a losing record. They totally collapsed. They're doing it again, and although they've had some injuries, we give you that. There was the idea of, you really think that 249 last year, Bryce Harper, was going to be the savior of the team? Yeah, he hits bombs, but for that average, why don't you just, pick up Pedro Alvarez off the scrap heap? He'll cost you a whole lot less. I know Alvarez doesn't play right field. Might as well try to. I can't do any worse than he did at first base, I guess. But regardless, the Phillies for the second straight year dropping like a brick. And we cannot figure out for the life of me, and in Philly they can't, how Gabe Kapler, the manager, keeps his job. Now, I realize that Philadelphia Phillies baseball is not necessarily on the lips of every Tri-Cities baseball fan, or for that matter, sports fan. This time of year with the race week and the Appalachian League and the pennant races and football starting, I get that. However, Charlie Manuel is something of a regional sports figure. If you didn't know, he was born in southern West Virginia, and he spent part of his youth growing up in Wythe County, Wytheville, Virginia, where the Wytheville Braves used to play, the Wytheville Cubs, right? So, he's a regional sports figure. He's got quasi-local ties, let's call it. And let's face it, there aren't that many local athletes from here, all right? And Doc Edwards, as I said, and Doc Edwards was from southern West Virginia as well, Hatfield's and McCoy's country, and he gave Manuel his first job in the major leagues as a hitting coach when Doc Edwards was the manager of the Indians. And you got to understand, Manuel only hit 198 as a major leaguer. So is this total, you were born in southern West Virginia, I was born in southern West Virginia, be my hitting coach? Well, I'm sure that was part of an attraction, but I don't think that was the last reason why. And I think the reason why was Edwards and Manuel are both, and I've been around them both enough to know this, they're loyal. They're extremely loyal people. This means something here. I'm going to give you some stories here. It was 18 years ago, gosh, and I was doing a story for Sports Talk. Remember that old magazine around here? Appalachian League players in the majors remember the Appalachian League. And at the time, Manuel was the Indians manager, and he was leading them to a division title. It was June 16th, I remember this very well, of that year. And I'm in the dugout, and he's talking to the reporters. You know what he's talking about? Carlos Baerga, who isn't on the Indians. He hasn't been on the Indians in quite some time. And he is lamenting that he cannot give Carlos Baerga a spot on the Cleveland roster. He just doesn't have one. And he wants to give him one because Baerga has helped make him a successful Major League hitting coach and then a successful manager. But it's about Baerga. He has no place to put him on the roster. And he is absolutely crestfallen about this. That's Charlie Manuel and loyalty. I'm going to tell you more about his loyalty when we return on Tri-City Sports Now.